How many times have you thought it's too late to start something new, that the best years of your life are behind you and success is no longer an option? What if I told you that some of history's greatest achievements were made by people who started too late? Or at least that's what they thought. Today, you're going to discover why it's never too late to start over and how change begins with a single decision. Are you ready to challenge everything you believe about time? Imagine waking up every day with the nagging feeling that something was left behind, as if time had slipped through your fingers. That's exactly how João, our protagonist, had spent the last few years. He was trapped in a repetitive routine, where the goals of his youth were nothing more than distant memories. Old photographs on his desk seemed to mock him, silent witnesses to the dreams he had abandoned. Between the demands of daily life and constant comparisons with successful friends on social media, João had been feeding the idea that his time had already passed. João began to believe in a narrative the world loves to reinforce, that there's an ideal timeline for achievements. If you haven't reached your goals by 30 or 40, the game is over. He would look at young entrepreneurs making headlines, innovators launching million-dollar businesses in their 20s, and think, how can I possibly compete with that now? This belief grew within him like a shadow, erasing any possibility of trying something new. After all, what was the point of starting if he thought he was already too late? But amidst that same routine, something different began to happen. During a coffee break, João found himself pondering an unsettling question. Is it really too late, or did I just give up too soon? This doubt kept echoing in his mind, like a crack of light breaking into a dark room. It was the beginning of a shift he didn't yet understand, but one that would completely change his perspective on time and success. João began to delve deeper into what made him feel behind in life. It didn't take long for him to realize how society creates invisible standards that dictate the pace of our achievements. Finishing school by a certain age, getting married, building a solid career before 30, achieving financial independence. For every milestone missed on time, a sense of failure seemed to creep in. João wasn't alone in feeling this way. Social media only amplified this pressure. He spent hours scrolling through his phone, watching peers post about job promotions, trips abroad, and achievements that seemed out of reach. Every carefully curated photo carried an implicit message. You should be further ahead. What João didn't realize at the time was that social media is a stage where everyone showcases their best moments while keeping the backstage hidden. But instead of questioning this distorted reality, he used these fragments as benchmarks to measure his own worth. The corporate world reinforced these beliefs even further. Articles praised young prodigies, CEOs who built empires by 25, entrepreneurs who disrupted industries before 30. The more João compared himself to these stories, the further behind he felt. If they could accomplish so much so early, what could I possibly do now? He thought. Yet, amidst these reflections, a new understanding began to emerge. João realized that this race against time was in fact an illusion. He started to ask himself, are these rules I follow ones I created, or just expectations I accepted without question? This question opened the door to a new perspective, one that would begin to free him from the invisible pressures holding him back. One ordinary evening, while browsing the internet, João stumbled upon a story that would begin to shift his perspective. He'd clicked on a video of a motivational speaker who talked about great visionaries who achieved their biggest successes after their 40s, 50s, and even 60s. It was as if something inside him had been awakened. The speaker mentioned figures like Ray Kroc, who transformed McDonald's into a global powerhouse at the age of 52, and Harlan Sanders, Colonel Sanders, who founded KFC at 65. João was stunned. He had heard of these individuals before, but had never associated them with the idea of starting late. These stories directly challenged the belief he had held onto for so long. If these people, at more advanced ages, could achieve such greatness, why couldn't I? In that moment, something inside João began to align. He felt a small spark of hope ignite within him. Maybe I've been holding myself back because of my age, but is the real problem in how I'm thinking? He realized that he had always focused on what he hadn't done, on the missed opportunities, without recognizing that time could actually be a powerful ally for someone willing to take action. This realization became the key to unlocking the doors to change. The thought that it was too late began to fade, replaced by a new mindset. It's never too late to start again. Although João had felt a new sense of hope emerging, doubt hadn't completely left him. He often found himself thinking, what if I fail? What if this change is harder than I imagine? Every time he tried to convince himself that he could start over, the inner voices grew louder, the fear of failure, the worry about others' judgment, and the pressure of not being able to make up for lost time. All of it blended into a whirlwind of negative thoughts. João began to question his own abilities. He remembered years of inaction, procrastination, and lack of initiative. How can I achieve anything now? He wondered. Is this even for me? He pictured those around him looking at him and thinking, isn't it a bit late to try something new? This constant comparison and fear of failure kept him paralyzed. Deeper questions also began to surface. Do I truly want to do this, or am I just trying to prove something to others? He started to realize that this internal struggle reflected a pattern of thought that needed to be broken. It wasn't just about seeking success or achieving a goal, but about freeing himself from the limiting beliefs that had been holding him back. Each step forward, however, felt harder than the last. Yet, at the same time, something inside him began to solidify, a feeling that, no matter how challenging, turning back was no longer an option. João realized that to change his life, he would first need to confront his insecurities. He had to be patient with himself, give himself permission to fail, and, most importantly, permission to try again. In this moment of vulnerability, João discovered a strength he hadn't known before, the will to act despite his fears. After weeks of reflection and internal struggle, João made a decision. He was tired of being held back by fear, doubt, and the idea that time had run out. If he truly wanted to change his life, he needed to start now, not wait for the right age or the perfect moment. With that resolve, he took the first step. It wasn't a giant leap, but it was a step. João enrolled in an online course on entrepreneurship. At first, he felt hesitant. He wasn't sure if he could keep up or truly learn. But instead of sabotaging himself with these thoughts, he did what needed to be done. He committed. The simple act of clicking the sign-up button was a milestone. It was as if he was telling himself, I deserve to try. I deserve this chance. In the days that followed, the sense of relief was immense. Although doubts still lingered, taking action became the fuel he needed to keep going. With each class he attended, with every new concept he learned, João's confidence grew. He began to realize that change doesn't happen all at once, but gradually, like a slow and steady construction. Life didn't need to be reinvented in a single day. What mattered was that he had started. And for the first time in a long while, João felt in control of his own story. Now he knew. The only wrong step was not taking one at all. In the first few months, João's journey was far from easy. He had to balance his new course with his current job, which demanded much more time and energy than he had anticipated. Doubts began to creep in again, but this time he was better equipped to face them. Whenever he thought about giving up, something inside him pushed him forward. João remembered a phrase he had heard from a mentor. It's not about how much progress you make each day, but about the fact that you keep going, even when challenges arise. He applied this advice to every new obstacle. There were days when he felt overwhelmed, thinking he'd never master a new concept or understand how to apply it to his future business. But instead of giving up, he started over, even if it meant dedicating just 1 more hour or taking things a little slower. João realized that learning wasn't linear. He allowed himself to make mistakes, learn from them, and keep moving forward. Over time, he began to notice changes in himself, not just in his knowledge, but in his mindset. He became more proactive, more willing to take risks, and braver in facing challenges. His worldview was transformed. João realized that by taking action, he was becoming the person he had always wanted to be. Success, he discovered, wasn't just about the final results, but about the personal growth that occurred throughout the journey. Looking back, João understood that the difficulties he faced weren't obstacles, but opportunities for growth. He was no longer trapped in the idea that it was too late to change his life. On the contrary, he had discovered that the greatest success lay in his own transformation. As João progressed in his journey, he began to realize that success wasn't just measured by big achievements or external changes. He started to value internal progress, the small daily victories that over time added up to create profound transformation. Instead of pressuring himself for immediate results, he learned to celebrate every step in the right direction. The turning point came when João received his first positive feedback on a project he was developing in his course. One of his instructors praised his dedication and ability to apply concepts creatively. This small compliment was the fuel he needed to believe in himself even more. While external recognition was encouraging, it wasn't what sustained him. It was the inner confidence he was starting to build. João began to understand that his biggest challenge wasn't achieving external success, but staying committed to the process without letting obstacles discourage him. Consistency became his greatest ally. He still faced tough days, but with each difficulty, João knew he was getting closer to becoming the person he had always wanted to be. Now he saw time differently. He understood that the secret wasn't in rushing to achieve results, but in persisting, learning, and above all, celebrating the journey. What truly mattered was the path itself, not just the destination. As João continued on his journey, he realized that the reality of pursuing business and personal dreams didn't always match his initial expectations. The path wasn't straight or obstacle-free. Despite the significant progress he had made, challenges kept appearing. There were days when he felt demotivated, questioning whether he was truly on the right track. That initial excitement began to blend with frustration. On one such day, João faced an unexpected failure. The project he had poured so much time and energy into didn't turn out as he had hoped. The market didn't respond the way he imagined. He felt the weight of disappointment and, for a moment, questioned whether he was truly ready to take this step. But this time, he didn't let it shake him as it might have in the past. Instead of succumbing to the feeling of failure, João used it as a learning opportunity. He reflected on what had gone wrong and made adjustments. This episode taught him the importance of managing frustration and navigating the ups and downs of the process. He came to understand that success isn't linear and that every setback is a chance to grow and improve. Instead of dwelling on failures, he began to view mistakes as natural parts of his evolution. João then made a crucial choice, not to let obstacles paralyze him. He knew the journey would be full of difficulties, but every step, whether forward or backward, brought him closer to achieving his dreams. From that moment on, he embraced the reality of the journey and pressed forward, steadfast in his personal and professional transformation. As João continued his journey, something deeper within him began to shift. He started to question his very definition of success. Previously, he had believed success to be something grand and immediate, a big business, a major achievement. But over time, he realized that for him, success meant something much more personal and internal. João came to understand that success wasn't just about external milestones, but about his ability to adapt, to keep learning, and to persist in the face of adversity. Success now lay in the confidence he had gained in himself, the patience he had developed to handle challenges, and the satisfaction of following a path that felt genuine, rather than chasing an ideal imposed by society. He also noticed how his perspective on life had transformed throughout the process. Before, he saw himself as someone behind, someone who had missed the chance to succeed. Now, he understood that it was never too late to start something new, and that true success was about staying true to his own values and desires. It wasn't about when you started, but how willing you were to keep going. João felt more connected to himself. He realized that by taking control of his life and career, he had freed himself from the limitations that once held him back. He no longer needed to prove anything to anyone. The true victory was recognizing that he was building his own definition of success, not the one the world had imposed on him. Time no longer felt like an enemy. He began to see time as a valuable tool that allowed him to grow, learn, and ultimately become the person he had always wanted to be. Success was a continuous journey, and João was ready to move forward. When João looked back, he barely recognized the person he had been before starting this journey. That man, full of doubts and insecurities, now felt so distant. He knew the road ahead would still have its challenges, but something within him had changed permanently. He was stronger, more confident, and most importantly, more authentic. João decided to take his career in a new direction, now with a focus on a greater purpose. He no longer saw himself as someone merely chasing external goals, but as an entrepreneur in constant evolution. He began sharing his journey with others, not to impress, but to inspire. He knew many others were facing the same fears and doubts he once had. João started offering mentorship to those who, like him, felt it was too late to begin something new. This became his new beginning, not chasing traditional success, but walking alongside others who were also starting their journeys. He found joy in helping others overcome the same barriers he had conquered. João realized that true value lay in the process, the learning and the connections he formed along the way. He finally understood that the idea of "it's too late" had never been real. What truly matters is the moment you decide to act. For João, that moment was now, and he was more than ready for whatever the future held. Today, João looks back with a peaceful smile on his face. He's no longer the man who believed it was too late to pursue his dreams. The journey wasn't easy, but he now understands that every obstacle, every challenge, every failure had a purpose to help him grow and become the person he is today. Success, as he discovered, was never about reaching a final destination, but about the constant process of transformation and evolution. João realized that true transformation wasn't just in his results, but in how he became capable of facing life with greater maturity and balance. He is no longer a prisoner of his limiting beliefs. He is no longer the man who doubts his own potential. On the contrary, he is now someone who believes in the power of action and persistence, someone who understands that time can be a powerful tool if you choose to use it to your advantage. By inspiring others with his story, João knows that his journey is just beginning, and above all, he has learned that it's never too late to start over. The right time to begin, he realized, is now. If you also feel like time has passed and it might be too late to chase your dreams, know that you're not alone. João proved that it's never too late to start your transformation, and you can do the same. Don't let fear and limiting beliefs hold you back. Subscribe to the channel, share your story in the comments, and take the first step on your journey of transformation today. What are you waiting for to change your life? The right time is now. Click the subscribe button, activate the notification bell, and don't miss any content that can help you transform yourself. Let's take the first step towards success together.